Hello guys, and welcome to part 1 of a breakdown tutorial that I'm doing in Blender for the stylized character. Now, one thing I want to mention is this is not like my usual tutorial where I go really slowly and explain it more in detail and more of the steps. So this is me doing a recording, and then I'm going to do kind of like a narration over it. So this is going to be a little bit more advanced. If you're really new to Blender, you might find it hard because I'm not going to explain how I do every little step, but I will cover everything and you will see the whole process. So this is it. It's really awesome. It's made in Blender. And then in part 2, I'm going to take you guys step by step through the lighting and the materials for this scene here. And I'm also going to be making this guy available on Patreon, so you guys can check that out in the description below, and the blend file will be there that you guys can look at if you want to get that. So let's get into this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so the new scene opened up in Blender. I'm going ahead and deleting the camera and the default lamp. I'm going to select the cube, go into edit mode, and I'm also going to the front orthographic view. Control R, I'm adding in a loop here, and Control R, a loop here like this. Shift Alt, selecting both of those loops. And then I'm going to go S, Shift, and Z, and that's just going to scale it out along the Y and the X axis points. Just like this. And this is creating this cylindrical shape for us right here. So you can just eye it till it looks about right. So this should be fine. We're then going to select the top vertex. So with vertex select mode, click on that vertex, Control plus to grow the selection, then E, Z to extrude up, and then S to scale it in. Do the same thing at the bottom. We're going to select this vertex, Control plus to grow the selection, E to extrude it down and bring it down to this point, and go to your modifiers, add in a subdivision surface modifier. Enabling optimal display, and then clicking on cage button here just so it looks nicer. We're going to go into object mode, shade smooth, and then we're going back into edit mode, and we're going to select this loop here, Shift D to bring it down, and then E to extrude that edge. So we're just creating the color here. We're going to just disable the cage on option. And with that edge selected, we're going to go E to extrude and then S to scale it in. And then E to extrude it down just a little bit, that edge, and S to scale it out, and then E to extrude it down one more time. So this is going to be the color here. We're then selecting a vertex here at the bottom, Control L just to select the whole thing, and then S to scale it. And we're just enabling the cage on here. I just like going between the cage on and cage off. I'm going to select this top edge here, and then E to extrude and S to scale a bit, and then E to extrude and S to scale one more time. Go to Object and enable Shade Smooth in Edit mode. So we now have the head and the collar here, so just going back into Edit mode, we're going to make the rest of the body. So I'm selecting this edge here at the bottom, E to extrude, S to scale it a little bit inwards, and then I'm going to go E to extrude, and I'm going to bring it up a little bit, S to scale it in a bit, and then I'm going to go E and extrude it down like this. Then E one more time to extrude it. And in the front view, I'm just going to scale it by hitting S. And then once more, I'm going to go E to extrude it down. And then I'm going to hit S to scale it up just a little bit. And I'm selecting this top edge again, S to scale it. I'm just scaling it along the X. Selecting this bottom edge again and then extruding it down. So this is pretty much the body here. Just selecting these edges here and just SX, scaling them along the X. And going to the side view here, it all looks okay. So I'm going to go cage on again, and now we're just going to continue editing some of these points. So I'm selecting this edge here, bringing it up a little bit, and SX, scaling on the X. So now I'm going to the top, selecting this loose geometry at the top, which is the head, and I'm going to the materials. We already have a material because we used the default cube. So I'm just going to the viewport display and just giving it a skin color here, because this is going to be the skin shader eventually. So I'm just calling it skin. Just making sure, and by default it's going to be applied to everything here because it's all one mesh. We're going to select the bottom part of the body, click plus, go new, and let's just call this shirt or vest because it's going to be underneath the coat. And then we're going to go and assign it. And we're going to come to the viewport display, and you can make it whatever you want. So I'm just going with like a brownish kind of color here, like a reddish kind of brown, just so I can see it's applied. Nothing too major. And tabbing out of edit mode, just having a look here, messing around with it. You guys don't have to go this far with the viewport materials. It's just something that I really get over the top with sometimes, but I'm just having a look at it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the coat, and we're going to be reusing some of this here. So we're going to tab into edit mode, select the body, and with the body selected, we're going to go Shift D to duplicate it, right click to let go, And then we're gonna scale it up a little bit. So I'm going Alt S here, but I think I might just scale. So just hit S to scale it up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go Control I, and that's gonna inverse the selection. We're gonna hit H to hide it. So all we're left with now here is the vest. Selecting this loop at the front and X and deleting those vertices. We're going plus, new material, and we're gonna call it jacket. And we're going to select that mesh, assign it, and let's just make it its own color just so we can see it's been applied. And then we're going to go Alt H just to unhide everything, and now it's all back in the scene. So let's select this loop here, grow the selection with Control plus, and just delete those faces there. So we're only left here with the code here. So we're now going to add a mirror modifier to this jacket. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the back, select this edge here, and we're going to hit V. So if you hit V, it's going to cut it. And we're going to go to the front, select the vertex on the left, Control L, that's going to select that loose geometry, X, and delete vertices. So we're going to go and select the whole thing. So just select the vertex, Control L to select it, hit P, and then go separate by selection. Go into edit object mode, select the thing separately, and give it its own mirror modifier. Make sure it's above the subdivision surface modifier, and enable clipping on that as well. So now it's its own object. So it's selected, go into edit mode, and let's go Control L, add in a loop over here. I'm hitting double G just to slide it. And you can also turn off the cage on option there, just like I did, if it makes it easier. So I'm hitting G twice, just sliding these loops around. And I'm just trying to plan out here how I'm gonna make the jacket. So I'm selecting these two vertices here, Shift D to duplicate them, so we've got this edge here, moving it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna go E to extrude it out. So I'm extruding this edge out here, rotating it a little bit, and I'm just following along the neck to make the color here, just like that. And I'm going to select the whole thing and just give it that vest or jacket material, just so it's red as well. And in the front view, I'm just moving it around, selecting the bottom vertices and just moving them down more. So this is going to be the collar here that sits around the neck. And I'm going to go Control R, roll in a loop here, double G to slide it, selecting those four vertices, go into my top view, G to move it forward, and then R to rotate it. So just rotating it in the front view, scaling it up a bit, bringing it in, and it doesn't look very good now, but it will in a minute. Selecting this edge at the back here, bringing it in a bit more, and then we're going to extrude. We're hitting E to extrude, moving it back here. And then we're going to go G just to move it, and it's going to snap because we have clipping enabled. So what we're going to do now is select the whole thing. We're going to hit P and separate by selection, making this its own object. So go to the modifier stack. Let's give it a solidify modifier, bump up the thickness amount, and let's put the subdivision surface modifier below it. So we got the solidify and then the subdivision surface modifier underneath it. And also just make sure to enable shade smooth. So in edit mode, we're going to come in here, Control R, double click, double G to slide in an edge loop. That's just going to sharpen up that edge. And we're going to do the same thing at the top here. And it's a little bit too thick, so go to this thickness modifier and just decrease it a little bit. This is obviously personal preference, but just trying to work it out so it makes sense. Okay, so with the jacket here selected, what we're going to do is we're going to hold in Shift. So select the jacket, hold in Shift to select the color. We're going to hit Control L or Command L, and we're going to link the modifier. So click on modifiers. So now you can see here the jacket has the same kind of properties, like the same sort of modifiers, I should say. And the color has the same as well. So they're both the same now. It's going to save us a bit of time. So with the jacket here, what we're going to do is we're going to tab into edit mode. Just Control R over here, add another loop just to slide in an edge to sharpen that up. And let's do the same at the bottom. So we're going to come down here, Control R, click in an edge and slide it down with double G. And in fact, select both these edges, just go S to scale it out a bit, just so the jacket looks a little bit more dynamic. Select this loop here and hit S to scale it out a bit more as well. I'm just in the right orthographic view here. And then what we're going to do is tab out of edit mode. We're going to hit A just to select everything here. So just select all of it and then go G and just Z, move it up. So we want to move it up in our scene a little bit. I'm selecting the jacket here, just bumping up the viewport display for the subdivision surface modifier. And then we're going to go Shift A and we're going to add in a UV sphere, moving it up to the side here. We're going to hit R and then X just to rotate it on the 90 degrees on the X. scale it down on the Y in edit mode. Just delete all of these back vertices here and select this edge and then EY just to extrude it out. And then we're going to go give it a subdivision surface modifier, object and shade smooth. And let's go move it in here, scale it down, go to the right view, move it forward, go to the top and then just rotate it in. So this is going to be the button eye that sits on the face. Let's go to our materials tab, just give it a new material, call it eyes, go to the viewport display and just make it whatever you want. I'm going to do black. So now we also have to give it a a mirror modifier. So we go to the modifiers, give it a mirror modifier, click on the eyedropper, select the body, and that's going to use it as a reference point for the mirror. And now we're just going to scale this one eye, move it around, just trying to get a position that we like. So now we have our eyes here. We're now going to add in the nose. So add in a cube, and then we're just going to go to our modifiers, just give it a subdivision surface modifier, and bump up the viewport display. And then go G, Z, move it up, and in your right view, move it forward, S to scale it down, and then we're going to go to object and enable shade smooth. Go to your materials tab and just give it that skin material, just like that. And then we're going to bump up the viewport and the render display here for the subdivision surface modifier. And with the nose here, I'm just scaling it on the X a bit, tabbing into edit mode, and I'm going to select this vertex here and this vertex here, scale them down. Go to the right view, select these two here, just make sure you select both of them. And then you're gonna go G, move them back on the Y. And you can create whatever kind of nose you want. I'm just kind of creating this kind of, almost like a puppet kind of nose. Very simple, not realistic at all, but it's very stylized. So here we have the nose, very simple. And then what we're gonna do is, I'm now just selecting the skin shader here. I'm going to the viewport display again and just messing around with it a little while. I kind of am very picky about this. You guys don't have to be like this. I'm just adjusting it a little bit till I get something I like. Doesn't really matter. These are not the final shaders by any means. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select the jacket. So select it, tab into edit mode, and what we're going to do is select this edge here. So this edge of vertices, and we're going to go to our top view, and then we're going to go G to move it, and then R to rotate it. So we're just bringing the jacket in a little bit more just to kind of close that gap at the front, just like that. And we're going to enable proportional editing, and I'm selecting this vertex here, I'm hitting G, and I'm just kind of moving it, trying to kind of fix the color area a little bit. So I'm going to select this guy here as well, bring it in a little bit, and you can adjust the proportional fall off as much as you need. I'm just keeping it small. So here we can see this is looking quite a lot better. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the color here, and then I'm going to go into edit mode. Select these vertices at the front here, just that edge, and I'm going to go G, move them in a little bit more towards the chest at the front. I still have proportional editing enabled. Selecting the two vertices in the inside here and just moving them out a little bit while I'm shrinking the proportional fall off. So this is also a matter of personal preference. You can exaggerate the characteristics of the color as much or as little as you want. So I'm just going through some different angles here, just bringing the points out a little bit more, give it some more definition here, and just pulling points, as you can see. So nothing too much to it, just bringing these ones at the front a little bit closer together, just so they cover the neck joint there. And yeah, that is pretty much the color. It's really getting there. Might select this vertex here, bring it in a bit, and that's pretty much what we have with that so far. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add in a camera, and we're going to bring the camera forward in that scene. G, Z, bring it up, and then we're going to go into our camera view, G, middle mouse button, and I'm just moving the camera back a bit. I'm going to go to the camera settings and just messing around with the Y value here and the X resolution as well. Might change this in a little while. It's just so I have something that I like just for now, so I can get a feel for the scene. I'm going to go to the camera settings. I like to bump the focal length up to 95 millimeters, and then I'm zooming back out again. So just like this. I might actually go back to the output settings here, and I'm going to make both of these values 1920 by 1920, and that's what I prefer for my Instagram and stuff. So that's just what I'm going to go with, 1920 by 1920. We are now going to select the jacket, and we're going to go into edit mode. Just select this edge here, double G just to slide those vertices to the middle here, just to smooth that out. I'm also turning off proportional editing for the time being. And the jacket is pretty much looking what I want it to look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our mesh options. So Shift A, we're going to go to our mesh options, add in a cylinder, go to the add cylinder settings and bump that down to 5 vertices. We're going to go G, move it over to the side, and then R to rotate in the front view. And we're going to come here, give it that jacket material. So just click on jacket, go to object and enable shade smooth as well. We're then going to go to our modifier settings here, and we're going to give this guy a subdivision surface modifier. And what we're going to do is tab into edit mode, selecting these vertices here just to select the face, and X delete face. And we're going to do the same thing at the bottom here, just getting rid of that face there. We're then going to grab these vertices here, and in wireframe we're just going to go S to scale them down. So S and scale them and bring them a little bit more into the body here. Select this loop of vertices here, and then we're going to go R to rotate, moving it up a bit, and then E to extrude down. This is just going to be a really stylized arm, and it's really easy to do. So just moving it out a bit, bringing this guy out a little bit. You can mess around with this as much as you need to, as long as it's not penetrating in the wrong places. And then we're going to select this loop at the bottom here in a second. So for now, just bump up the viewport display. And once you bumped up the viewport display, you can add in a mirror modifier, click on the eyedropper and select the body here. So now we can see it on both sides, and that's a bit easier. So now select this loop, extrude it down and just rotate it. So now we have the arm. We don't have to make hands because obviously this is just a frame of a portrait. It's not like an animation or anything. So just like this will give the illusion of arms on a jacket, and we can just minimize those there as well and just bump up the viewport display to make it smoother. So we are now going to add in the buttons. So we're going to go Shift A, go to mesh options, add in a circle. And we're going to go add circle. We're going to give the vertex count here something like 8. So type in 8, drop this down, go G and then Y, move it forward. Tab into edit mode, and with these vertices selected, we're going to go E and S to extrude them in. And then we're going to hit F to fill that. Go to your face select, select every second face. That's going to give us 4 faces. Coming up here to the pivot and making it individual origins, then I'm going to hit I. That's going to inset each one of these faces individually. And then I'm deleting the faces. Well, actually, just don't delete the faces, rather just undo that. With the faces selected and the individual origins active, we're going to go E to extrude and just extrude them all down like this. And then we're going to set that back to median point there. Go to the edge select, select the edges on the outside, E to extrude them down, and then E to extrude as to scale, and then E to extrude down. Move it up a little bit just so the origin point is sitting at the bottom of the button. And then go to your add modifier, give it a subdivision surface modifier, and also shade smooth. I'm going to come in here, Control R, double click to slide the double G to slide the loop, bring it up. And this is pretty basic here. You guys can make any kind of button you want. So I'm not going to go too in detail with this, just keeping it really, really basic. Bumping up the viewport display here. And now what I'm going to do with the button is going to rotate it on the X 90 degrees. And I'm going to add in another loop here. I'm trying to smooth it out here a little bit. It's not working too well. You guys can spend a little bit more time making the button, but since it's not going to be seen very closely, I'm not going to do too much of it. So it can really be as basic as you need it to be. You can even add in some of the threads going through. So I'm just going to give it its own material. I'm going to call it button. Go into the viewport here and obviously make the buttons whatever color you want. I think like a dark kind of color works well. It makes it nice and contrasty against the jacket. So I'm going to go S just to scale it down. They can be as big as you want to, so up to you. Moving it in towards the body here. And I'm just going to try and attach it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the top in a second, enable the little magnet tool here, and I change this to faces. So I'm going to snap, so this is going to snap it to the surface here. So if I move it, you can see here it's snapping to the surface of the jacket. So Shift D to duplicate. I'm just working my way down here, snapping them. So turning it off quickly, I'm just going to rotate it on the Z. and this one at the top here. So this is not something I'm gonna go too in detail on. This is super basic. I'm sure you guys can figure this out. I'm just snapping these buttons and duplicating them to the surface here. So very, very simple. Yes, you could use an array modifier and a curve to follow along, but that's just unnecessary when you can just quickly snap them like this. So here we have the buttons. They're looking quite nice. I might also just select each one of these guys and just enable individual origins again and just scale them a little bit smaller. So this is, like I said, completely up to you. It's personal preference. So setting it back to median there, and I'm just embedding the buttons. Some of them need to be a little bit more deeper as they're kind of floating on the surface. So this is completely up to you. Just moving them around. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is very basic stuff you guys should be quite familiar with. So just refining the buttons here. Going back, having a little look. Sometimes it's just good to kind of back off and just have a little bit of a look to see how it's going. And that looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A. We're going to add in a plane, RX 90 to rotate it 90 degrees. And we're also going to give it a mirror modifier. And we're going to click on the eyedropper and select the body as the reference. And we're going to go S to scale it down and move it in towards the nose. And let's give it its own material. We're just going to call it hair because this is going to be part of the hair system as it's the mustache. Give it a kind of brown color or whatever color you want the hair to be, moving it forward. Then tabbing into edit mode and just selecting the edge here at the front, moving it in towards the nose. Then selecting this edge here, bringing it further out a little bit. Now there's like 1,000 different kind of mustaches you can do, but I'm just keeping it very simple here. So just kind of like a French mustache, extruding another edge here, and then one more edge and scaling it down. So this is very self-explanatory, as you can see here, not complicated. So just go to your mirror, enable clipping, and you should be able to snap that edge together there in the middle. And then subdivision surface modifier. And standing back, it looks quite good, but I'm going to select this whole bottom edge, G, and moving it down a bit. So I want a nice thick mustache. And that's looking okay. But what we need to do now is give it a solidify modifier. So go and give it a solidify. Then we're going to bring the thickness out a bit, but we need the subdivision surface modifier to be below the solidify. So we're going to move it in closer to the face, go to object, and also enable shade smooth. So under your subdivision surface, bump it up a little bit, then tab into edit mode and just rotate the mesh a little bit and bring it in closer to the face, just so it's hugging around the curvature a little bit better. So don't go too extreme. So that should be okay. And in fact, we can just go into edit mode, select the tip, enable proportional editing, and just bring it in closer to the face. And just whatever works for you. So that's looking okay. I might even scale the tip here in just to sharpen that mustache a little bit. And we're going to make a mouth as well, just because it's very stylized, but it doesn't need to be there. So that's looking pretty cool. Might bring this down just a little bit, just to make it a little bit more beefy. And now that's looking absolutely fantastic. So very simple, stylized little mustache here. So now to make the ears, we're going to add in a cube. We're then going to go G, move it over to the side of the head here. To save some time, holding in Shift, select the mustache, Control L, and link the modifier. So now this has the same modifiers as the mustache. Shrink it down, bring it in closer to the head, and give it that skin shader. Go to Object and enable Shade Smooth. So now with this ear in our right view, we're going to just scale it in on the Y. And then what we're going to do is bring it down. So you can position the ears wherever you want. In our modifier settings, I'm going to bump up the viewport and the render display for the subdivision modifier. Then we're going to go into edit mode, go to vertex select, and in wireframe, I'm just bringing these two inner vertices in. Disabling proportional editing, Control R, adding in a loop in the middle, and then rotating this face at the top here and bringing it out towards the top. So very simple stylized ear. Also get rid of the solidify modifier here, we don't need it. So just get rid of it in the stack. That's a lot better. We're now going to go to face select, select these two faces here and hit I, and that's just going to inset that face there. And then go E to extrude it in. And there we have a very simple stylized little ear. And now we're going back into object mode, and that's already looking pretty cool. We're now going to select the color here. So just select it, tab into edit mode, select that edge here just at the top, and with proportional editing enabled, just go G and just sag this a little bit here on the neck collar just to give it a little bit of roundness. Just looks a bit better. It's a little detail you can do if you want to. And then we're just going to select the jacket here. I'm just going to mess around with the viewport display for the color. I know it's not necessary at all. I just like it aesthetically when I'm working. So I just bumped up the roughness there a bit. Not important at all. So just selecting the head here, we're also going to just scale this loop at the top on the X a little bit, just so the head doesn't feel so pointy. You don't have to do that. You can keep it as it is. It's just a little detail I'm doing. And here we have him a little bit more refined. So I'm really starting to love this character, what it's looking like. But I think what we can do now is go to our face select, Shift Alt, just click on this loop of faces here and select the four faces at the top, just so we have like a cap. And then select these faces over here as well. So we're going to just make a sculpt. Select pretty much his sculpt and then Shift Duplicate, hit P and separate by selection so it's its own object. And just give it that hair material. So now we have this kind of like dome here. Select it and go Alt S in edit mode. So now we have all of these faces here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to our modifiers tab. We're going to give it a solidify. And then put it on top of the subdivision surface modifier and bring it up a little bit. So now we can see we have the hair here. You don't have to give this character hair. You can keep it as simple as you want. So I'm going into edit mode, just selecting the bottom vertices here. And I'm going to move them back a bit and then E to extrude them down. So just creating his hair. And this is kind of like an 80s style, kind of almost like a mullet kind of hairstyle. You can do whatever you want. I'm keeping it super stylized. Just selecting them all, scaling on the X a little bit in edit mode. And there we have it. Very, very simple hair. And since we're going to be seeing this character from the front, I'm not going to spend too much time on the side. But even on the side, it looks pretty okay, even if you wanted to like rig this character. So here we have the hair and the mustache. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add in a backdrop. So adding in a plane, scaling it up, and just moving it back in the scene. This is something nice you can do if you want. And giving it a placeholder material and making the color something that I like. So I'm going to go with maybe like a kind of an orange, something like that. Yellowish kind of orange. And bring up the brightness. And this doesn't really matter. They're just placeholder materials. I'm calling it backdrop as well, just so I know what it is. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to select the jacket here, and I'm going to also make it kind of like an orange. And these are just viewport colors. That doesn't mean this is the final thing. I just really like seeing it in the viewport, and this is probably going to be the color scheme or color palette I'm going to go with in the end anyway. So here you can see the character is coming together quite nicely. And one more thing we have to do is create eyebrows. So quickly select the mustache, just select an edge here, Shift D, bring it up. And then we're going to use a similar method the way we made the mustache, just extruding the edge and then bringing it forward a little bit. Now we have a little piece of geometry here we can turn into an eyebrow. So just moving this face forward, selecting this edge here, extruding it out, making it a bit more pointy, and then moving it back along the Y. And even like this, that's already quite enough, but I'm just going to add a little bit more detail here towards the front, bringing that edge in a little bit more to round it out. So here we have a very quick, simple eyebrow. Just going to move that mesh up a little bit. You don't want to make him look too angry or sad, just kind of find something in between. Go to Object and enable Shade Smooth in Object Mode. So those eyebrows are now part of the mustache. So yeah, they should also have the hair material. So here we have the character so far, and it's looking pretty cool. So what we're going to be doing in the next part 2, is we're going to be setting up the lighting and then doing some of the materials. So we already have the placeholder materials. It's going to be quite easy. So check that out, part 2. And once again, like I said, this project file will be available on my Patreon, which you guys can check out in the description below as well.